Another thing that I learned was don't compromise your peace or your sanity for anybody. When you get to the place, ooh, there was a bug. Ah! It was a gnat. I don't know if I got it. Gross, 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 gross. Ah, blooper reel. Oh my goodness. Hello, beautiful people, lovely ones. Welcome back to another Hear Me Yell. Today, I'm going to be talking about leaving my job and the lessons that I learned from it. So, for those of you who don't know, at my former job, I was a nursing manager of a large OBGYN practice with about 10 providers, a mixture of midwives and physicians. So, I managed the nursing team, but I also kind of served as a general resource person for various, actually pretty much everyone in the practice. And I was the only RN. So, the providers, the physicians and the midwives, they utilized me in some different ways than they did the rest of the nurses who were LPNs. So it was a lot. It was a lot of work. In addition to that, we had, outpatient surgical procedures, small surgical procedures done in the office. And I had to coordinate, kind of the operations of that, especially from a clinical standpoint. So I did a lot, and I experienced a lot, and it really, really got to me. And I've just learned so much. I've learned life lessons even from the process of leaving. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. All right. So jumping right in, leaving a job is not life or death, but staying might be. You don't have anything to lose by leaving. I'm not saying there's not factors like money or schedule, but when you're in a position where you know it is time for you to move on, you have everything to gain. You have a blank slate of what you can do next or where you can go. And leaving is really launching you into another part of life, but staying could actually destroy your life. And I found being at that job, there were elements of my life that were beginning to severely crumble because I was there. And so it was time for me to move on, and I did, but I really figured that out. Like, I was afraid of leaving for a little while, but leaving wasn't the problem, staying was. Number 2, the second thing that I learned is make sure your ears are open. Make sure your ears are open. I remember a time, because there were so many challenges, that I kept having issues, not necessarily with people, but with situations. I was short-staffed. I had high staff turnover. Nurses didn't get along. There was drama, even though I did my best to help mitigate that. Then there'd be times of decent peace, and there was just a lot, just so much. And I remember one particular situation where 2 nurses literally conspired together to quit. And so I came back from a weekend at Monday morning to 2 of the 3 staff nurses being gone, and there was no advance notice. So at that point, this was 6 months into the job, and I was like, nope, cool, fine. I'll find something else to do. I really don't need this. I really, really don't need this. And the Lord told me, he was like, you don't let anybody run you out of this place. You're done when I say you're done, and you're not done. And I'll tell you when you're free to go, but you're not. This is your training camp for other things that don't matter right now. But I was just like, wow. And even though it was so hard for me, I knew I heard God. And God was putting me through the ringer. And honestly, that job was like an emotional and spiritual and mental obstacle course, but it made me stronger. It exposed me badly. Like, not only did it exposed my weaknesses in a way that I was like ashamed for a while. And I'm not saying I had anything necessarily to be ashamed about, but I was ashamed. It showed me strengths too. But make sure your ears are open when it was time for me to go, when I was done, somewhere between like 7, 8, 9 months before I left, God told me it was okay to go. So I started looking for a job. But make sure you have your ears open so you know whether to stay, to go, what God is trying to do. Speaking of exposure, number three, don't let anyone take you out of your character. Because I was frustrated, because I was miserable. I'm normally a pretty bubbly person. I can be reserved. Like, if I don't feel like talking, I don't feel like talking. But generally speaking, I'm going to engage people once I know them. I'm going to engage people. I'm going to be bubbly. I'm going to joke. I'm going to laugh. I'm a smile. I'm going to do my job with animation, purpose, and passion. That's what I'm going to do. And I lost that. I felt like my ability to be resilient had run out. And I kid you not, I had 2 straight years of resilience. 2 straight years. And every time I thought something couldn't get harder, it got harder. And I came to a point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And I was so depressed. I was so frustrated. I was so anxious that I felt tense all the time. I felt tense not at work. I felt tense at home. I was dreaming about work. And so when I got to work, I still had that tension. I was frustrated. Normally, like, I'm like, how can I help people? What can I do to help them? Things that people could do themselves. Whether or not they kind of asked me, I was ready to let them do it themselves. And I was frustrated. And I kind of like just didn't hide that, to the point one time my boss asked me, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay." But I also didn't pretend to be okay, and I verbalized the issues I was having, and we're not going to go into that. Even in my silence, like even when I wasn't saying anything, my silence was really heavy, and I noticed people started to alienate themselves to me because it probably seemed like I just switched up in my character, but really I had come to the end of my rope and just felt like I couldn't cope anymore. But that's something I'm extraordinarily not proud of, was that I felt like I let the job get to me so much that it took me out of character. But part of the reason why it took me out of character is because I wasn't praying like I was supposed to. So that brings me to another thing. Pray, 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 pray. Because praying keeps your spirit in check and it helps you be who you're supposed to be. No matter what we're going through in life, especially if you're a Christian, we're supposed to represent Christ. And I felt like I had let God down in that area for a certain point in time. Like, people need to see, feel, and experience Christ through us. And because I was so frustrated and so burnt out, and I wasn't fueling myself in prayer, and I got away from the things that keep me grounded, the spiritual things that keep me grounded, I just was trying to do things in my flesh, in my way. I was just like not talking to God, and I was just waking up and getting sucked into the abyss of all this stress. And that was not the will of God for me. So yes, you need to pray. I wish I shut my mouth to people and opened it to God, which eventually I did, but it took a while for that to happen. So another thing that I learned was, don't compromise your peace or your sanity to stay. Don't compromise that. I came to the point where I was like, you know what? If I get hit by a bus, this practice gonna keep going. Why am I waiting to get hit by a bus? Let me just leave. Let me just leave. And the job tore me down so much because I was so worried about the people I cared about, whether they knew I cared about them or not. Like, I cared about everybody that I worked with, and I wanted them to do well, and I didn't want them to struggle. And I knew how many things my hands were in, and I was so worried, what's going to happen when I leave? That's not my problem. I was not the practice manager. I was the nursing manager. And even then, it's just not my problem. When it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go. But I had compromised or was feeling the struggle, you know, for my peace and for my sanity. And that's when I was really like, I just remember moments like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What it's never been was that serious. It's a job. This is not my life. So don't don't compromise those things. I kid you not. I probably the last year and a half that I worked there, I was I've always, I can't say always. For the last few years, I've been trying to lose weight, to be healthier. I'm just not healthy. That's the reality. Or I haven't been healthy. I'm on another track and I'm working my way through that now. But I wanted to be healthier and had gone through this period of like losing weight and I was doing great and things were happening at work and then I was just getting depressed and I was struggling and I put on 40 pounds probably in the last year. I put on about 40 pounds, which I'm so frustrated about because now that I'm out of that situation, I'm literally carrying the weight of that job. But it's being let go. I already lost, and this summer I lost 7 pounds. So it might not be noticeable, but I'm thankful for that. And I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep working to be healthy. I'm in a healthier space in my mind and in my spirit. I'm free in my soul. So, by the grace of God, results will come. I just have to be consistent. But that's what happened when I sacrificed my sanity. I gained 40 pounds. And then that made me more frustrated and I felt awful about myself and it was just bad. So don't do that. Just remember, like, you don't owe anybody anything. You owe God everything and you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself. So be resilient. Don't give up. Once God told me I can leave, I applied to like 25 jobs in 6 months and things just kept falling through. Things would look real good. I was like, ooh, that's more money and I'm gonna be done with my master's. And things were just looking like they were for me and it just didn't work. Which brings me to the biggest thing that I learned in prayer is just to ask God and invite him into everything and be honest. So what happened was February of this year, when I tell you I was at the lowest of the lowest of the low point, but I was just like, I know God cares about me. And even though I'm frustrated, and even though he told me 7 months ago that I can leave this job, and even though I've been out of school for 2 months and nothing seems to be coming through, and everything at work just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse, and it takes the only reason why I didn't quit is because I have bills to pay, because I would have just quit off of faith. But I had responsibilities. The only reason why I didn't quit was because I had bills to pay. And when I was at that point, when I was just beyond broken, like I would go on my break, I would go in my car and I would cry. Like that's how bad it had gotten because I just wasn't there anymore. I was physically there and I had stuff to do, but in my spirit, I wasn't there. And I remember it was one February night, like we had a great service at church during the day, and I had fallen asleep on the couch at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m., woke up at like 12 in the morning, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to pray. I'm going to talk to God. And I just got on my knees and I was like, Lord, you said ask and I'll be given you, seek, you'll find, knock, and the door will be open. Everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, everyone who knocks, the door will be open. And on top of that, you said that if, human men, if earthly fathers know how to give their children bread and they don't give them a rock when they ask for a piece of bread, or they don't give them a serpent or a scorpion if they ask for a piece of meat, for a piece of fish. Earthly fathers would do that for their children. How much more so would our Heavenly Father, take care of us? And I just reminded God of his word and I was like, Lord, this is what you said. And this is, I feel that. And I was like, this is all I have. It's all I have to stand on. And I was just crying and I was just like, God, I'm not begging you. I'm not complaining. I'm literally just asking. I told God, I said, I'm just asking. And then he told me what company website to go on, went on, had been on, had looked for jobs, there a few weeks prior, didn't see anything, and I saw this position for an OB educator for a family birthing center, and I was like, I can do this. And so I put an application in at 3 in the morning, and I got called by 9 a.m. and had a scheduled interview for, I believe it was that week, like 2 days later. And then a week later, I was offered the job. And then about 3 weeks later, I started the job. 3 weeks, a month later, and I've been there for 5 months now, and I'm so happy and I'm so blessed and I'm so free. But those are just some of the things that I've learned in the process of leaving my job. So I hope if you find yourself in a similar situation or even just frustrated at work, that you remember to have your ears open, that you remember that staying might cost you more than leaving. What happens if you leave is not yours to deal with, but just follow the path that God has for you. Stay in character of who God made you. Stay humble. Seek God so you can be what He wants you to be while you're going through these difficult times. Keep the faith. Keep believing. Do what you need to do to get out that job if you have permission, no matter how much it takes. Just keep seeking those opportunities and just be open and honest with God and be like, you know how much I can bear? I don't feel like I can bear this. So either give me the strength to bear this or relieve this burden from me, and watch God bless your life. That's what I learned in my process. And I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful. And I know what I will never do again from that situation, but I've grown so much. In some ways, it was the hardest 2.5 years of my life, but it has launched me into a season of blessing, or just being prepared for whatever God brings my way. So just remember, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that God loves you. I love you too. And this has been Hear Me Out.